Right, I've just wet the whistle. We good?
Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket. Yeah.
Okay.
Do it. Just send it.
All right, let's send it. Hello, and welcome to another edition of your favourite motorsport and sim racing podcast. Back once again for the Renegade Master. It's a highly sought after Race Department podcast that might not be factually correct, but we're going with it. Missed us? So have we. And I would like to apologise for the small gap, but I'm not going to. With many cogs turning over at RD, Paul and myself, the other Paul, have been busy. What the other two have been up to, I have no idea, but most likely not anything good. We have once again squeezed ourselves for your pleasure into the RD virtual studio. Of course, we are observing social distancing as it's virtual. For those of you that might be new to this podcast, I'm Paul Glover, and I'm joined once again by Paul Jeffrey. Hello, Paul.
Hey, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Beer in hand, I'm happy.
I've had 4 already. Party on. Hello, everybody.
I mean, I've been out and I've been enjoying the weather a little bit. I've had dinner, and now I'm just going to, I'm settling with a beer. Then, second in the list this week, Davide Nativo. How are you, Davide?
Hello, fine, thank you.
Good. I'm very well, thanks for asking. And
I don't care.
Yeah, that's why.
I just don't care about them.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you see the text he sends me, then you'll know he does really care. And finally, but not least, Daniel Monteiro. Hello, Daniel.
Good. I'm good. And hope you're good too.
Yeah, I'm very good. Can I just, before we move on, Daniel, have you moved back to Portugal?
I haven't moved, but since, due to the current situation, since I'm working remotely from home, I thought, okay, if I have to be at home, why not be at home? So I decided to come to Portugal for a few weeks.
To be fair, I mean, the weather in Scotland versus the weather in Portugal, I think you've made a really good decision there.
I don't know, because it's been really warm up. Well, it's almost a bit too warm here now, or maybe I'm just becoming a Scot and I'm not used anymore to the Portuguese weather. But no regrets. The food more than makes up for it, and family as well, so no regrets.
Okay, great stuff. So as we record this, lockdown across Europe is starting to ease. Life is getting back to some form of normality, whatever that looks like for you. Talk of returning motorsport, as we all know, sim racing, esports has been riding a wave of late, though not without controversy. If you listen back to our back catalogue, you know that I do not hold back my thoughts on our topics, though lately I'm trying to lead the discussions, and this time I'm taking us down the path of racing pros mixing in the sim racing world. We have previously touched on this in season 2, episode 3, but felt it was time to revisit following some news over the last few weeks. And when I say we, I basically mean me. I know it doesn't sound like it, but we do prepare for this podcast. It's organised chaos most of the time, I'll give you that. Right, so that's that preamble waffle over and done with. It's time to get stuck in. So I set the guys some questions earlier in the week, and I'm going to start with Daniel this week. So first question, Daniel. There's been a lot of esports series kind of sprouting up with some pros, some sim racing pros, some just general sim racers, influencers, and special guests and everything else. Of all the esports series that's been available to us, some clashing at the same times. What's been your favourite so far?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because there's many that are good, but to cut it short, I would say overall with the broadcast package and the racing, and I would say the esports WTCR, because unlike many of the series we see around, they actually still mix real racing drivers with the sim racers, and they have week in, week out races together, while many other series are separating the sim racers to one side and the pro drivers to another side. So that's why I like the esports WTCR overall the most.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched that one. How's the broadcasted? Is it pretty much how it would be if it was the real TCR racing?
Well, it lacks in the fact that it hasn't been broadcast with the commentators are good commentators on the sim racing scene, but they're not the ones that have been on TV, like for example Martin Haven or with SRO right now. But
good name drop there. I like that. Yeah, Martin Haven. Hello, Martin, if you listen.
Yes, see you next time. And also, I think mostly because the drivers are mixing up with the sim racers. That's the most important thing to me. But the broadcast itself, the commentators and the camera work is also quite good because the guys that do it, Kirk, I think his name, and Robert Wiesenmuller, they've been doing it for a while, so they know what they're doing, and I think they do a solid job. But my close second would go to IMSA Racing in iRacing Pro Series because it has John Heinhoff commentating, who does 24-hour Le Mans and so on, and it's just uncanny how you look at it at the first glance, and it looks like just a real race when you see all the GTE cars and you hear those familiar voices. It's just really, really good. But I like the mix of sim racers and drivers together. That's why Esport.
Right. Okay then, Davide, same to you. What's been your favourite so far?
Honestly, I think that the one that struck me the most is the one that, as a race department, we are actively, taking part in, which is the SRO Esport.
Not biased at all.
On brand. That's what I like. Yeah, go stick your trip to Portugal, Daniel, where the sun don't shine. At least Davide's getting it. He sees where his loyalties are. He gets it. He knows where his bread's buttered. Yeah, carry on, Davide, my friend.
Yeah, no, honestly, I understand that it might sound, like biased. I think that's the right way to pronounce the word, but it is not. Honestly, I think that at this time it is the best as an overall package. But I have to make a distinction. I like in particular the AM series, the M Championship, the one drove by amateur drivers. Mm-hmm. Because I've watched, some of the races from the Pro Championship, and I must say that there are a lot more accidents and situation a bit weird on track. The commentators, of course, are awesome from what I saw or heard.
They're very good, the commentators.
Yeah, but even though the drivers are actually pro drivers, I think that without trying not to offend anyone, the M drivers participating in the M Championship drive better, and so the racing is better for me, and as an overall series, and in particular inside our own championship, the SRO one. And the broadcaster, Martin, Vicky, Paul, are doing an awesome job. They really engage you in the action, and the broadcasting camera replays.
The replays are particularly good, I've got to say.
Especially on the last round.
More luck than judgment, that one. Shoddy.
Yeah, since
I'm not so sure about Paul, the commentator. He could do a little bit of some lessons, couldn't he?
I think he's positively a legend. I think that's the Murray Walker of sim racing, some might say.
The unsung hero there is Davey. I mean, the amount of work Davey's put in, and to be honest, Steve. I mean, I know it's going a little bit off topic, but if you could see the amount of work that people have put in behind the scenes, and to see it all come off, and to kind of sit back and we all have a beer afterwards, like a virtual beer, we kind of talk about what we, just kind of like sort of just kind of come down from it, I suppose, because we're so focused on it. And it's really good to see that you've appreciated it, mate. It genuinely is, and putting a smile on my face. So thank you.
You're welcome. You guys are doing an awesome job. I must say that since Danny joined last weekend as a spotter for Action on Track, the replays have dramatically improved because previously.
Cheers, bro.
No, jokes aside, you're doing an awesome job.
Do you know? We're genuinely getting Danny on side really helped us, because there are some limitations with ACC. Where you seeing the leaderboard, so having Danny as a spotter, and then also what was really good, while we were doing other replays, Danny would see an overtake, and I'd be like, hold that, let me know, tell me that in a second, and then he'd give me the cars, and I go searching for it, and it was the first time Danny had done it, so that that would only get better, and that's the thing, we've made a conscious effort to improve week in, week out. We review what we didn't do so well, what could we do, what do we think is missing. And when we sat down after this week's one, we were like, really push to find something, which is really where you want to be. You want to be constantly striving to be better. And
absolutely.
And so thank you for your
teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. As cheesy as that sounds, I'll give you that one. Yeah.
And
to be fair, that is the kind of rubbish I would come up with. So I don't know what I'm saying.
One last thing, Paul, that must not be forgotten is that maybe I'm wrong, but I think that we are the only one giving away prizes to our audience. And even if we are not the only one, we are surely the ones giving the best. The best giveaway prizes too.
SRO American one is giving away prizes because I
copied off us.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yes, we were first.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So that's another big pro of the SRO.
Yeah. So there are. So if you haven't watched any of the
GT
streams, we do give away some awesome prizes. I must say, I really wanted the monitor. I really wanted the monitor.
It's almost like you've never mentioned that, Paul, before. I
don't know what you're on about. I don't know what you're on about.
Like news, like I've never heard that.
I know. Not that I keep banging on the drum. So great. Yeah, thank you, David Day. That's really lovely.
Welcome, guys.
Paul, that's really lovely to hear, isn't it? Genuinely.
Mate. Seriously, thank you, David Day and Danny and everybody. That is really because as Paul Glover touched on. I think I'm fair to say that on the duration of the season, not once has at least one member of the team gone to bed before 2 a.m. getting stuff done. There's been times when Steve and I have been texting each other at 2:30 to finalise things in a morning. So the amount of work that goes on from everybody across the board is staggering, actually. And to get a good result at the end of it, and to see people like David A and hopefully others suggesting that they enjoy what comes out the door at the other end. Yeah, awesome. I've had a couple of beers, so I don't know if I'm feeling emotional, but that's brought a little tear to the eye. Cheers, mate.
So, Paul, over to you. You can't vote for yourself, so.
I've had a couple of beers. I love all of them. They're brilliant. No, I do like, jokes aside, I actually do like, and it sounds really up your own bum to say it, I do like our broadcast. I like the short and sharp introduction. Vicky Butler-Henderson does a fabulous job. Martin Haven is basically the Murray Walker of touring cars and GT racing. So to have his voice on board is just unbelievable. For me, pound for pound, he's the best commentator out there, active at this moment in time, in my humble opinion. To the point where I'm often sat next to him going, this is a good broadcast. And then I'll say, so Paul, what do you think? No, this is work. I'm thinking of watching telly, and then I have to jump in and say something. So I really do like ours. And as Davide rightly put, I love the fact it's on the drivers, the sim racers, the community. So it's wicked. I've enjoyed watching real world big names jump in a sim racing, but I also feel a little bit like we've been, when I say we, I mean sim racers as a group, not just we as in this podcast or we as in Race Department. Sim racers as a group have been beavering away in sim racing before it became popular. Yeah. And the second it's become popular, have been pushed completely to one side to make room for esport professionals and real world drivers. They've got all the pomp and fanfare and the broadcasts and the big events. And the people who, and I mean this in the greatest respect in the world, the people who actually matter, the people who here day in, day out, who've sim raced for 20 odd years, supported the hobby when it was nothing, have all been pushed away. Not pushed away, but pushed to the side. Yeah. And the whole idea of when we sat down with SRO to say, do you want to do this coming season? Obviously, we probably would have been doing the whole thing. But because of COVID, there's a lot of people out of work, including broadcast teams and commentators. So we said, no, we want it to be a not customer focus, what was audience first approach. Yeah. So we want to get loads of broadcast sponsors on. We want to give away tons of cool stuff and make it so people that are actually bread and butter sim racers get their moment of glory. We wanted a name commentator, awesome as Paul Jeffrey is, we wanted a name commentator because the coolness of being, and I say this again respectfully, just a sim racer. And you've got Martin Haven commentating over you, is phenomenal stuff. And we really liked that idea. And again, it sounds like I'm deliberately saying this because I'm RD and I'm involved in it, and I'm genuinely not. I just like the fact that it's about us about us as a community, us as sim racers, and it's not fly-by-night people. I'm not going to touch on it too much because we're going to talk about it later, but it's not pros coming in, getting some glory and then getting off again and going and doing the real job and never touching esports.
Yeah.
It's about what matters, and that I do like. But if I have to choose something we're not involved with, I've been really enjoying the V8 supercars, their All-Star E-Series.
Yeah, it's been one of my favourites.
Yeah,
driving quality's been good. Broadcast quality's been good.
Yeah.
Been really interesting to see the big names that win all the time in the real world also winning in sim. So Scotty McLaughlin, Shane Van Gisbergen and the likes. Cream rises to crop even in virtual world. So that's been cool.
Yeah. It's been one of my favourites. That one, the supercars one. I think it's very, very slick, and they've done it like they would a normal broadcast, which is how it should be treated and respected. Okay,
but again, also just to interject before we move on,
hit the microphone.
That's the thing about. There's a massive disparity in budgets of what all these many millions of esports series are doing. So obviously the V8 Supercar one, I've got the TV people behind it and a good sized budget. Then you've got much smaller ones, and I think everybody deserves merit from the small stuff that's been organised from somebody's bedroom to the multi-million dollar productions.
Before they disbanded, I mean, I was really enjoying Red Line Motorsport. I watched their 6-hour at Spa, and their coverage was awesome, and that's just guys doing it from their bedroom, but it was very, very organised. The way they handled the race control was phenomenal for me.
And it's nice now esports, I hate calling it esports, it's sim racing, for crying out loud. Esports are just a new buzzword. But the fact that sim racing's become more socially acceptable and mainstream because of COVID, it's nice that these sorts of people are starting to get eyes on where previously they maybe wouldn't have done so much. So that's a silver lining in an otherwise dark cloud.
Indeed. Okay, all right. So moving on, I think we've done
what about you, Paul Glover? Your favourite one?
Yeah, it would be supercars.
It would be the supercars, okay.
It would be the supercars,
Oh, come on, Glover. Get your own opinion.
No, it would. Genuinely, my two favourites were supercars and the IndyCar one.
Oh, yeah, good shout, IndyCar. I forgot about
that. Yeah, true. IndyCar is very good.
Yeah, because again, it was the same commentators. And one thing that you've heard a lot from a lot of commentators, where you've got real-life commentators suddenly commentating on sim racing, you often hear a similar line of, this is really realistic, isn't it? This is really good. Like, I can't, I think... If certain commentators, not naming names, wouldn't keep telling you it's a sim racing game, because I think that takes you, because like you're trying to recreate, you're trying to replicate real life motorsport. If someone keeps telling you this is a game, it takes you away from that, like it takes you out of it. So talk about it, but don't just keep banging that drum. Just talk about it once or twice, and then let's move on. Let's concentrate on the race in itself. Let's actually commentate on the race, because that's what you're paid to do. I don't want you to keep telling me about this is a Assetto Corsa Competizione, this is R Factor 2. Like, people don't care about that. If you're trying to appeal to a mass market, your geeks will care, like me, but everybody else doesn't, and that kind of takes me away from it sometimes. So I'm watching the racing and I sometimes forget that it's not real, and then they bring me back in and I'm like, why'd you do that? So yeah, that's the only thing for me. But yeah, the IndyCar and supercars for me have been my favourites out there, and then of course our own one, because I'm biased. And what Paul was saying about people stay up till 2:30, that's not me. I'm very fortunate where my job is literally I practice during the week, during the hours with Davey, and then we make sure things work, and then I turn up on the day. So I still get to lead a relatively normal life in this strange world that we currently live in. Okay, right. So moving on. I'm going to start with Davide this time. So what has surprised you around about sim racing and the uptake by pros? Has anything surprised you in this time, with the likes of I mean, Lando Norris is not a good example because he's been always around, but Charles Leclerc, Albon, a lot of the Formula One drivers, George Russell, and so forth. I mean, have you been surprised by the recent uptake?
Well, I must say that in general, given the situation, no, because of course, with the pandemic going on and the motorsport grinding to halt, and them themselves supporting, esports series, it was kind of expected. But now that you mention it, I must say that, for example, I've been quite surprised by Charles Leclerc. I know you guys, everyone knows I love him, but
the prodigy. Hold on. A podcast that we'd never mentioned Charles Leclerc. Has that ever happened?
I don't think so. He deserves to be mentioned in every.
He's your Lando Norris, isn't he?
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz Jr. for the win. There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
No, I must say that, for example, Leclerc, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that before this time he was involved or this actively involved in sim racing. And he jumped right straight into it. He's trying, a lot of sims, doing a lot of things, and isn't afraid even to try things for fun, like, for example, the lawn mower or other fun mods.
Dressing as a banana.
Yeah, so for example, I like his approach. He jumped in a world that probably you didn't know that well, and he's having fun with it. And
I don't know if you know this, but he got announced for the 24-hour Le Mans.
Yeah, so
and he didn't know that he was. So it
really,
So I don't know if that would be his agent getting him involved, or whether that would be Ferrari getting involved. But what has kind of surprised me is that he's not being very Ferrari. Does that make sense? He's because a lot of Ferrari drivers over the past, like Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, generally have kind of like kept themselves out of the limelight. I'm guessing, but though I guess during Michael Schumacher's era, there wasn't the social media that we have now.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But I mean, the internet was still in its infancy then. But
yeah.
You know what I mean? I've genuinely been surprised that he's been so forthcoming and been so open. And then there was that clip where his girlfriend had to subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, I saw that.
to get a message to him that she needed letting in, and he's not afraid to curse either, which has also surprised me about him.
He's a very natural character, and that's one of the reasons. He's very likable. As I was saying, in this case, he was so immersed in the race that he wasn't paying attention to his girlfriend ringing the bell of the door. So, and it's a situation, where us as sim racers can somehow relate to. Sometimes that you had your phone with someone calling, or an important call, and you dismissing it because you were racing. So. It's a situation. Are situations which we can relate to as sim racers.
What about other pros like the Formula One lot? Have you been surprised by how they've kind of got together and practiced together, or do you think that's been kind of spurred on by Formula One themselves and running their own esports?
I must say that I noticed that some of the drivers, like for example Leclerc, Albon. George Russell. Sorry, the name.
It's okay. I often forget his name as well. To be fair.
Sorry, George.
Sorry, George.
And also from time to time, Lando, who was more involved with the IndyCar series. They seem to have a very natural, friendly relationship among them, which I wasn't expecting Because, like, for example, when we watch the Drive to Survive series, it seems like F1 is a world where everyone is against anyone else. It's everyone is a wolf, basically. Instead, with this esports series and the streams and so on, we could see that it isn't like so. There is friendship between drivers, and they have a relationship that goes beyond, the competition on track.
Yeah.
And it's a very genuine one. And before this period, I couldn't see it.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. But we're gonna I'm gonna now pass that question on to
sure.
to Paul Jeffrey.
Yo,
have you been surprised by the sim racing uptake by pros and also ex-pros in the likes of Mr. Jensen Button?
Yeah, I think Davide made a really good point, which was going to be the crux of my point as well, actually, was it's been really interesting to see a little bit behind the curtain.
It has, yeah, the Iron Curtain, yeah.
So, I mean, again, I think some of it is related to the fact that we live in a modern world with technology and cameras and streaming that's maybe not been present so much in the past. But Formula One drivers have always seemed, or racing drivers in general, a bit of a step removed. So any kind of insight you get into them is usually orchestrated by a PR manager or something along those lines. Whereas nowadays, sorry, not nowadays, but COVID times and doing the streaming, we've really got to see a little bit more of the personality where the guard's down, they're not playing the corporate team game, they're having a little bit of banter. And as Davide said, Lando, Max Verstappen to a point, Leclerc, Albon, Russell, and a couple of others have got a really nice camaraderie together, and the IndyCar guys as well all seem to be just a little bit like Drive to Survive, but less orchestrated. So you can see a little bit more of the personalities. And I think that when we get back to racing properly again, will go a long way towards cementing some of these drivers' fan base.
Yeah.
Because you don't... I mean, in Formula One now in particular, you've got the big high cockpit sides and you've got the halo. So you don't see much of the driver in action. So you can't be awed by the car control. You don't get to see or hear anything from them when you're actually being interviewed at a race event. All these PR stuff like Sky Sports will sometimes do a semi-off-the-cuff piece with somebody on the build-up, but it's still, there's always the PR manager in the background, and it's still a little bit kind of formalised. And here you've really got to see some of the personalities behind the helmet, so to speak, and that for me has been a revelation. That's been really interesting. Better, I mean, probably a controversial thing to say based on what I do, but I'm not amazingly bought into watching esports yet, fully. I enjoy esports, but I'm not so that I wouldn't sit down and watch 3 or 4 hours worth of footage over a weekend or anything. But watching the background banter and the streams from drivers in particular, where they're engaging with the audience and whatnot, for me, has been riveting, and I've really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole thing where a lot of people went mental over Mr. George Russell because he took his top off or something during
absolutely of zero interest to me.
I know, but it was like a thing for like 2 weeks. Everyone kept like messaging him saying, "Can you take your top off?" And then like Joel Leclerc's like, "Why are people asking you to take your top off?" And and it kind of, like you say, it kind of brings another perspective, and you get to see their faces when they do something silly. You see the expressions they pull, or and what was quite funny was, so I mean, I only watched a couple of the F1 esports because it doesn't really tickle my.
No, it don't ring my bells. That
doesn't ring my bell whatsoever. And there's a lot of talk. And what was quite funny was George Russell got really annoyed about getting a penalty, and it was quite interesting to see how serious that he was taking it, and because. You're not necessarily privy to that, but he was just basically over the radio with all the drivers going, right, I'm not happy. What's happening? Why are they giving me I can't believe you're giving me a penalty. And he just wouldn't, and you could tell his blood was genuinely boiling. So yeah, I completely agree with the kind of seeing that we can Yeah.
It is a good point. And also, I mean, you prompted me on it, but it was the point I was also going to make was it's been exceptionally interesting to see a whole bunch of retired drivers come back in again. And I fully expect when we get back to normal, or whatever normal's going to be, the vast majority of active drivers will disappear from the scene or fleetingly appear, etc., etc. But to see people like Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, and a load of drivers from yesteryear almost getting a second lease. I mean, the other day I was talking to Emanuele Pirro, who is a 5-time Le Mans winner. I think he's in his mid to late 50s now. He packed in a few years ago. And he was sort of saying to me that if you'd have talked to me 2 or 3 months ago, I didn't know about sim racing, didn't really ring any bells for me. And now he's got a second lease of life and he's got a second career. He can still race and race against some big names where age is not a problem.
Yeah.
Emanuele, he races, he doesn't even have a rig. He races in a little fold-out chair and his wheel clamped to a little cheap wheel clamped to a little cheap table sort of thing. But he's still really good. He's at the absolute sharp end. So it's been awesome to see Mario Andretti at 80 years old make a comeback in one of the championships.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I'm far more interested.
Even Zach Brown's been racing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm far more interested in that than I am to see Driver X racing in the virtual version of their real series. Like Formula E, that's been quite good, the Race at Home Challenge. But I'm not particularly interested in watching the Formula E grid race on a sim. But I am particularly interested in seeing how Mario gets on against people that he never raced in, period, for example.
Do you know the problem with the Formula E esports is? It's too much like the real thing.
Yeah.
With the crashes. Anyway.
I will say, though, just off subject ever so slightly for a second,
yeah.
The Formula E content in R Factor 2 is some of my favourite sim racing
content.
You
keep saying
I love it. I keep banging that drum up in somebody racing club.
I've not tried it yet, so I don't have an opinion. But
it's phenomenal. It feels beautiful. The other day, I know I'm off subject, so I'll keep it very, very short. The other day, I've not fired R Factor 2 up for a while, so I had the Ferrari 488 to buy, New York E-Prix, Berlin, and the Radical. So I bought them all at the same time. Thought, right, I'm going to give them a try.
Ching ching, Mr. Moneybags.
I'm unemployed now, so I really can't afford to be doing that. But out of those four, out of all the excitement, I went on the Formula E tracks first, which surprised me when I thought about it after, but it really is. It's wicked. So, Formula E's not really my bag in real life, but in the sim, very nice. Anyway, sorry, I've taken you off subject. I'll be quiet now and mute myself.
It's all right, it's okay, it's all right. This is just what you do. Right.
How true. Sorry.
Danny, over to you. So, same question. Have you been surprised by the sim racing uptake by our pros out there?
Well, yes and no. No, depending on the drivers, but most of them, the ones that were currently driving, I'm not so surprised because they're competitors by nature. And if there's something that can relate to what they do and they can do it with their fellow drivers, then not a surprise. But I'm surprised, like Paul said, by the comebacks of Emerson Fittipaldi and Mario Andretti. That was great to see. One of my favorites ones is the race legends, because you see those guys going against, I'm surprised that Jenson Button, having semi-retired, is still he was pretty serious about this race thing.
Yeah,
and even more so,
Fernando Alonso's been involved recently as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I was gonna say even more so. It's just Fernando Alonso came out of nowhere.
There's rumours of him potentially going back to Formula One, but anyway.
What surprised me the most was him coming out of he hasn't been racing in that many series that we've seen now, and then suddenly he really wanted that Indy victory, so he did win Indy on the race. Even the second race, he started from the back with the reverse grid and still won it. So that's maybe how bad he wanted that Triple Crown, and he made it semi-virtually by getting it on the game. So I'm surprised by those kind of guys that came a bit out of retirement or something.
I know Rubens has been involved as well, hasn't he? But he's done sim racing before.
Who's this?
Rubens Barrichello.
Oh yeah, he's been on
and
EMS
Jan
for a long
Magnussen
time
as well.
Who?
Jan Magnussen.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah.
But again,
Olivier Panis.
Yeah, there's many of them on the legend.
Mika Salo.
Casallo, Thiago Monteiro is not
some great
not
names
old.
you haven't heard
Yeah.
of in a long time. But it's
been great. Those are the ones that surprised me the most.
Yeah, me too. And I think a lot of them have, probably been gifted a rig as well. I'd imagine, and hardware. So,
Which
more power to them.
at all.
It's good.
Sorry, what was that, Paul?
Which is not sickening at all. That
No,
all
it's
these
not.
famous
No,
rich people get
no,
all their
no.
free hardware.
No.
What's the problem? If they give us good entertainment, then more power to them. That's my view on it.
I'll give you good entertainment for a free rig. I shall dance with my
Wait,
I shall dance with my shirt off. There you go.
That escalated quickly.
It's coming soon.
Yeah,
Your game is your shirt, so you cannot take it off.
please don't. It'll have to come with a warning, ugly warning. Right. Okay, moving on. So, Paul, starting with you on this one. Recently, there's been some controversy with regards to pros and sim racing during events.
Really?
Yeah,
I've missed all that.
Anything shocked you? Anything surprised you? Any thoughts what could be done to avoid such controversy going forward?
I shall elaborate after my quick one-word answer to all three of those questions. Anything shocked me? Stupidity. Anything surprised me? Stupidity. Anything done to avoid such controversy? Stop being stupid.
Okay.
Yeah, just how unbelievably thick and out of touch with anything that's happening around you people can be. So I'm referring to pretty much every controversial sim racing incident that's happened, but in particular, the Daniel Abt situation in Formula E. So for those who missed it, Daniel Abt allegedly thought it would be funny to step away from his cockpit and employ a sim racing pro ringer in the real world drivers Formula E race, which is a race for all the real world Formula E drivers. Went one further by hiding the face on the webcam so you couldn't tell it wasn't him, and then not going to the interview after and citing technical difficulties for why he couldn't talk after the event, with, he claims, the intention of then revealing on his Twitch channel later on that it wasn't him, it was actually a ringer, blah, 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 which is not funny, particularly. But then comedians have made careers out of things that aren't funny, so fair enough to him. But it's just absolutely unbelievably stupid to think that a brand, a manufacturer, and all the associated sponsors in an officially sanctioned series that's in place as replacement for the real world thing would allow that to happen and be okay with it. So to be so short-sighted and
Naive,
dim-witted,
I think is the word, isn't it? Naive? Is it
that's
naivety? Or is it
naivety is politeness. I would say it's pure stupidity.
Yeah.
I could see that as clear as the balls on a dog, that's not going to go
so
down well.
many people have come out and defended his actions there.
Well, I think, it was harsh to fire him, for sure.
Yeah.
But he's got no one to blame for himself, because Audi are particularly sensitive about controversy based on all the bad things that have happened with them in the non-too-distant past.
I don't know what you're referring to, Paul. But
I know, exactly. Very low-profile stuff. So obviously they've done their DTM, push him out, malarkey, and obviously the VAG group, Dieselgate scandal, etc.
Oh, that controversy. Oh, yeah, now you remind me. Yeah.
I was saying this to somebody the other day. And again, I'm not going to go too much into following points that we're going to discuss in a minute, but these official sanctioned series, so I'm not talking about championships that the drivers have arranged for themselves, I'm talking about the Formula E championship is being put in place. It's donating towards a charity, but also it's being put in place to replace the real world Formula E championship that's not racing. So the official teams are there, the official brands, all the sponsorship, all the other tackle that goes around it. So doing something untoward in that championship, regardless of how serious you take it, is exactly the same as going to a media PR event in a race weekend. So again, let's use Formula One. They often do things with Sky Sports where like Kimi Räikkönen will drive a ice car.
Yeah, or
on a
remote
lake.
control car with stuff.
So it's
they've
like
been
going
doing.
there.
Yeah.
So imagine, it's the equivalent to Kimi going there and doing something ridiculous, like turning up bladdered, swearing with his hands down in front of his trousers. Just doing something massively inappropriate. Yeah. He would be punished severely.
He would be, because he's representing his brand, right?
Yes. So this is, in all intents and purposes, this is another media exercise. So doing something harmful to the brand, bringing the sport into disrepute, bringing the sponsors into a negative light, will be punished in the real world.
Yeah.
And to think to be naive enough or dim enough to think that wouldn't happen is just balmy to me. And so I do feel sorry for him. He was very contrite in his statement. At first I thought he was cheating for victory, in which case I've got no sympathy, you're a scumbag. But I do actually believe that he just thought it was misguided attempt at being humorous.
Yeah, and I watched the video too, and that's how
but I've got no sympathy for him.
It came across.
I've still got no sympathy for him because it was stupidity in the absolute extreme to have thought that would wash.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's put the hidden camera on the driver's face and not turned up to the interview. If you were going to be funny, then you go to the interview and say, "Ha, it's not me, mate." Or you get the guy that's ringing for you to put a Daniel Apps face mask on. Hey, it's Daniel Apps. You know what I mean? That's funny. But what essentially he's doing is having a joke at the expense of the series and the sponsors and all that lot for the benefit of improving his social following on Twitch. So although it's not cheating to get a win, it was doing something that was stupid for personal gain because it was going to be the big reveal on his Twitch channel, which would then put eyes on him and there'd be a noise about it. So it's still for his own personal gain. It's just not for race result gain. And I think something like that was just a little bit daft.
Yeah.
In the extreme.
Okay. All right, Danny, over to you. Same thing. Have you been surprised about what's been happening with pros in sim racing events? And and as Paul has just quite cleverly answered, really.
Well, yeah, he did. What has shocked me is basically how some people have done, like some drivers have done some stuff in the games. Not only like Paul mentioned Daniel Epp, but also Kyle Larson or Bubba Wallace, and they lost their jobs. While other ones like Simon Pagenaud or Santino Ferrucci did maybe just as bad things, but people just let it fly. So that's actually what's shocked me, that some things go unpunished without a slap on the wrist and others lose their jobs.
I think the Kyle Larson one, I think you got to be careful there. I think, using a racial slur.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it.
But I can see why.
I'm talking about the consequences have been like black or white, basically.
Yeah, reading, especially what's happening currently globally at the moment, especially in America. NASCAR has done a big PR job in trying to improve its brand because, a lot of people consider it to be rednecks and so forth, and that comes with certain viewpoints on the kind of the drivers and the spectators, and
absolutely.
for him to do that has damaged NASCAR's reputation. So for that one, that's the right decision. I mean, that was just idiotic, stupid, and he was right to get axed, in my opinion.
Fair enough. My point was basically that while this is happening, others are getting no punishment whatsoever. That was my point, basically.
Yeah, I guess the Lando Norris Pagenaud one. It's
that was the Indy 500, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Indy. Yeah.
I mean, Simon, what he did was basically what we have created communities for, to avoid public lobbies crashing and stuff. So that's a bit sad to see that happening, especially when the guy wears his racing overalls to represent his team. I don't know. It just left me with a stale taste.
I think you're right to a point. I think I agree. I think you're right. I think he should have received something. I don't think it's kind of possibly not Kyle Larson, Daniel Apps territory.
Well, definitely not Kyle Larson, but surely like Bubba Wallace territory.
Do you think, though?
Yeah, maybe.
Do you think it makes a big difference that Simon Pagenaud is one of the best IndyCar drivers and being respectful as possible, Daniel Apps, Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson aren't quite as big a loss to their teams as it would be sacking Pagenaud?
Possibly. Well, there might be a bit of that involved.
At the end,
well.
money always talks, so I don't know what's in the background, but to be honest, from what I see, I mean, if you've watched a few of the... Maybe it's also depending on what kind of businesses are involved. For example, if you've seen a few of the races with real drivers, it's like semi-official. Some of them are representing their brands, it's the same car, but with liveries of their racing cars or something. And it's basically, it looks like a wreck fest with Formula cars sometimes. It's just appalling to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But nothing happened. It's all in a good mood. Sure. And I mean, for example, that I think she's a Dutch girl from the Formula W, or W series, I mean.
Yeah.
She also got wrecked badly at Indy at some point, and she just gave up because, come on, it was just impossible to drive a full lap without getting crashed on. So she just left her stream open and just didn't race the second race.
Right.
And Bubba Wallace decided to do the same, just with a more energetic fashion. Said, "Nah, I'm out of here. I'm not here to be crashed." And he just loses his job. So I think it's a bit extreme from that perspective. But again, every case will be a case. Every business behind it will be a business. So it's just a bit different that what happens according to the situation and which series they're driving and so on. But of course, some extremes, I'm not on their side. It's just saying that we've seen a bit of everything, and that's a bit what shocks me.
I suppose
with the overflow of drivers.
Yeah,
coming in.
you raise a valid point. Like the inconsistency, maybe does the punishment or lack of punishment fit the crime?
Yeah, like
I think
if
you're always going to get that though.
If you've seen the virtual GP at Monaco, I mean, if you have, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, that was Need for Speed basically. That was wall riding and crashing people out.
But in the F1 esports, they turn damage off, don't they?
Yeah, so that's another thing we can talk about.
It kind of undermines the whole thing.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and everything is allowed basically. So
yeah, I mean, it kind of leads us on to the next question, but I'll let Davide answer this one first. Davide, have you been surprised with the controversy that we've been seeing with sim racing pros involved in sim racing?
Yeah, surely I have to. And Paul did make a lot of good points, and one thing I want to take from his point of view that I agree with is the fact that all of these controversies basically were born, or at least a good 95% of them was born out of the fact that drivers were not interested in understanding what sim racing is and what racing in this series was about. They discarded sim racing as driving in some sort of Ridge Racer or Need for Speed title, and who cares? And that is wrong to start with, of course. There is no need to explain why. But I think that even if you were asked to drive in an arcade title, whatever that could be, you still owe to the people watching you, supporting you, that love you, or that want to have a good time while in this dramatic situation we are living in, that you give your best, not your worst. You are doing this not just because you have a passion for driving, but also because you try to give a spectacle to people, in a sense. And in this case, with the sport series, that is very much true. It becomes more about the spectacle than the passion for driving, because these, of course, are virtual cars, are pretend race cars. So your job mainly becomes giving a spectacle to people, and for a good reason, as I was saying, to ease them from the pain of the situation we are in. So discarding everything and giving your worst is just bad, in my opinion. It's just bad because it's lack of respect, not only towards the people that employ you, but much more towards the people supporting you, or looking up to you. And I think that this could have been avoided with two possible options, or maybe both of them together. One was that what I saw is that most of the official motorsport series kind of pushed all of their drivers to race in Esport series. We aren't driving in real life, so we give the spectacle this way, so go and drive on your PC. That for me is kind of a wrong approach. I understand maybe, you consider the driver on a payroll, so he has to do what you ask him to do, but considering the situation, that is not the case. It's like asking in an office to someone who does a specific mention to do another one from one day to another. You have to give people the time to adapt, or even choose if they want to do that. And that was one way to avoid the drivers that are not interested in sim racing from taking part in it. And another one was giving drivers the time to adapt and understand what they were dealing with, both from racing in a sim perspective and from a public relation perspective. What does it mean to people at home? Because most of the drivers had to figure all of this out from themselves. We've seen it with George Russell, with Charles Leclerc, with Albon. They had to understand what sim racing was about by themselves. Mm-hmm. And of course, many other drivers were left confused and did maybe bad things because they didn't do it, with the purpose of doing, something something bad, but because they didn't understand properly what was happening in a sense. I hope it's clear enough. So for me, this is my opinion of what surprised me and what I think that could be done to avoid this situation from arising situations.
Okay. I think that's a really good answer, mate.
I prepared the whole day for this.
I'm surprised because it came from your mouth. Right. All jokings aside, I'll stick with you, Davide, then. Next question. Yeah. Do us sim racers take sim racing too seriously, or should the pros be taking it more seriously?
I think that I will give a yes to both of the questions, because about us, sim racers or amateur drivers, we could say, it is indeed something that we do, that we give too much importance to sim racing. But it's not just a trait peculiar to sim racers. I've seen it also in people flying in flying simulators and other kinds of sims. Basically, when we approach sims, we pretend to enter in some sort of bubble that make us believe that we are doing something that we would like to do in real life, and for one reason or another we cannot. But this can become toxic at times. We have to remember that that is all pretending in the end. It is a bubble. You are closing yourself in. And you have to treat it with the right, you have to give it the right perspective. Yeah. That, of course, means that if you have made it to an officially sanctioned series like the drivers that are taking part in our AM series, you have to give your best, of course. Also because that might open you possibilities to actually having that become part of your real life. Yeah. Or in another race, where you are expected to drive cleanly. Yeah,
as we've seen, some of the AM drivers have been supported by, say, Bentley, in the races, and and that's a huge opportunity for them. And if they do something, if they don't take it seriously, then you're potentially damaging the Bentley brand, and and so forth. So
yeah. So what I mean is just that you have to remember at all times that. It is sim racing, not just racing. It is sim racing. Of course, being a human being, remember that every situation is different. So, of course, if you're representing Bentley, you have to pretend that you are actually in a race car on a real racetrack.
Yeah.
So every situation is different.
Yeah.
And about drivers, definitely many of them are already taking it seriously, but in general, a more serious approach would help for avoiding the situation that we have talked about just before.
Okay, all right. Okay, Paul, over to you. Same question. Do sim racers take sim racing too seriously, or should pros be taking it more seriously?
I think it's incredibly dependent on the circumstance.
Okay.
So, for us sim racers, I personally am into sim racing because I can't do motor racing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So the more serious we are about it, the better. So personally, for me, if you don't want to be serious about it, if you want pick up and play, that's exactly what online's for. It's your own experience, it's your own event, it's your own solo endeavour, so you can be as laid back or intense as you want. So that's a different thing altogether. But in terms of an online world, slightly different maybe in an online public lobby, but in an organised series or event or whatnot, seriousness is critical for us, I believe. It's mimicking, replicating real life as closely as possible. I don't like to go into a race unless I've put hundreds, if not thousands of kilometres in practice beforehand, so I can be as clean and as neat and as best as I can possibly be. So yeah, from our point of view, I personally think the more serious the better, and I think that's why a community like Race Department, where we are generally speaking erring more towards the edge of the hardcore sims than not, I think we appreciate that and accept that and understand what that is. That is what Race Department stands for. That is what people come here for.
Here, brother.
Ray, I'm losing my beer buzz. I'm starting to get a bit of a headache and water's not filling the gap, so apologies if I ramble. From the pro side of things, I think it depends on what you're doing. I mean, we've talked about F1, their series, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's not very serious. They've got golfers and footballers and a smattering of Grand Prix drivers in there. That's absolutely fine to have a lark and to not take it seriously. Just rock up on a controller or on a wheel or whatever, and varying degrees of people being bothered.
Yeah, Roberto Carlos was involved.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, that's a name I've not heard for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised you even know who he is, but yeah.
I vaguely know who he is from football days, but I also recall Martin Brundle tried to interview him on the grid once. They didn't speak any English, so that was quite funny. But yeah, so that's fine. And then you've got the more serious events. So the things like the SRO Esport GT, the pros, which is for the GT World Challenge drivers. That's a pretty serious affair. It's got, again, representing the brand, representing SRO and their own manufacturers and stuff. And they do take that seriously. And I've seen some good levels of commitment, actually some really good quality driving. Surprised me somewhat in that championship. And other championships, like, for the most part, the V8 supercars, for example, again, very serious levels. So apologies for you, Paul, as the man who set the question, but I almost think it's an irrelevant question because you can't answer it. I don't think they should be taking it more seriously, but I don't think they should take it less seriously either. I think it's so dependent on what it is we're talking about. On the
series that's being run, is that what you're saying?
So for me, in terms of like esport racing, I hate esport, I've said it before, but in terms of organised online sim racing, there is pure entertainment value, which is the F1 type things in this world, where it doesn't matter a monkey's what happens. There's semi-serious stuff where you're representing a brand, but still it doesn't matter all that much, which is like the Race at Home Challenge, Formula E, or some of the stuff that, like the Legends trophies that we've seen and whatever. And then there's the relatively serious, the pretty serious, like for like replacement for the real world job, like the SRO, the Superstars, the GT Rivals America type malarkeys. And I think it broadly fits in those three categories. So the question's kind of obsolete unless you're specifically drilling down onto one of those three for me.
Okay. And how about you, Danny?
Well, pretty much all has been said, but my answers were more based on a bit more specific cases. So I think sim racers should, if they want, they should take it seriously and very seriously, and if that's what makes it enjoyable. That's why we make championships and leagues and so on, because we want to take it a bit more seriously. But going too seriously, of course, it's bad, and we've seen it even before these COVID times. There's been a few episodes where some sim racers have made some pretty nasty moves just because it was so serious and they really wanted to win, and they pushed somebody on the last lap, like Sebring 12 hours last year. That was pretty bad and not necessary. So that's taken a bit too far. But I think being serious, yeah, like David said, we're simulating something we want to try to replicate. So that's part of the immersion. That's part of why we do it. So totally fine.
Agreed.
The drivers, I think they should only be more serious than they are, or if they're not serious at all, if their contract obligations tell them to. Otherwise, I think that the ones that are enjoying it are already serious enough, and we've seen it, like they said. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okie dokie. Right. On to the final question then. Danny, I'll start with you. As the current pandemic carries on for however long, and we are seeing, as I said in the intro, some of the restrictions starting to ease, real life racing may not be, as we know, normal for a while. So today, Formula One have come out and have talked about back-to-back races at Silverstone. I think they've already said 8 races, but they're hoping to put on 15 to 18 races and finish in December. And they're going to announce that over the next few weeks. But what would you like to see from esports and pros? Is there anything that you feel that is missing, Danny?
Yeah.
And do you think the pandemic will have a positive outcome with sim racing, or do you think it's just a bubble?
I think, like linking back to the third question, I think what to do to make this all craziness better. Like this will bubble down surely by the time COVID is over, but by that time as well, I think the whole audience of motorsports will have had a very big look at what sim racing is, and this will have brought a lot of people in. So that's amazing for our hobby. But yeah, what I think is, so I think that's really, really positive what's happening to us, the sim racing community. But what I think has been missing until now, unfortunately, is that we have so many series like the IMSA Pro Racing Series, the Supercars, the SRO. They're all great series. I like to watch many of them. But maybe it's a bit of wishful thinking, but I've been waiting, at least in one of these series, for some race or some event that actually counts for something, that drivers can go on and go to their real cars later next year or this year and say, oh yeah, but in 2020 I won the Bathurst 12 hour or something. That for there to be the one race that counts more than any other similar race that was run during these times, because there's so many Bathursts or Spa 6 hours or Indy 500s so how do we know which one actually is the most prestigious or the one that counts the most? That's what I'm missing.
Like an accredited one.
That's really what I'm missing. The one race that actually really counts for something.
Yeah, because you could run like Bathurst every weekend event, couldn't you? Like a 12 hour.
So,
yeah.
But where is the Bathurst?
A bit more.
Basically?
So you're talking about like FIA type thing going on for sim racing.
Yeah, kind of like FIA, or even if it's like a down under thing, or
a body, a sim racing
thing.
body, of some like a sim racing body that makes sure that like events don't clash and things like that, which happens in real life motorsport.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think we'll get it with the virtual 24 hours of Le Mans, because I think that's probably going to be a one-off. And that's probably the one that counts, I think.
I mean, the drivers that have been announced for that,
it's just madness.
Unbelievable.
So I think that's actually the one that's going to be the one that counts during these COVID times, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Over to you, Paul.
Sorry, couldn't find the unmute button. Right. What was the question?
So as the current pandemic carries on for however long, real life racing may not be normal for a while yet. What would you like to see from esports and pros? What do you think's missing? And do you think the pandemic will have a positive outcome from sim racing?
Oh, many questions. Right. What would I like to see from esports and pros? What's missing? I'm quite content with the diversity that we've got at the moment. We've got the real drivers from the real championship racing in the simulated version. We've got the mix where pros and sims race together. We've got the legends. Yeah, I'm quite content, to be honest, to what we've got at this moment in time. Complemented somewhat by the fact that I'm not a huge consumer of esport racing anyway, so I'm not fully au fait with a full offering of what's out there anyway, really. So I'm not really in that great a position to suggest what might or might not be missing. But in terms of the question of, do I think the pandemic will have a positive outcome for sim racing? Absolutely. It's put a significant number of eyes on our hobby that it's just we've not been able to get before, because it's literally the only thing that's been left. So I think that can only be a good thing. There'll be a lot of people, depending on what they've watched and depending on their perspective, that'll look at, let's rephrase it. I hope there'll be a significant number of people that look at this and realise it's more than just a game. That realise it's more than just, well, let's think of it this way. When I talk to people that don't know what sim racing is in the real world, they all, no matter how much I explain it, come back to me, it's like, oh, so it's like Forza, is it? And again, no disrespect to Forza, but they've got this idea of a young teenager on an Xbox sat in front of the front room, living room telly, thrashing around a Lamborghini Huracan at 600 mile an hour, going sideways over muck while racing a helicopter. And if we can break some of that wrong opinion and we can show people that actually this is legitimate, it is to drive something like ACC or R Factor 2 on the limit, has got a lot of crossover skills with a real thing, and it's a very good copy based on technology that we've got and what the real life is, and it gives us some more followers. That Bram, the founder and owner of RD, always says pretty much every sim racer is a motorsport fan, and every motorsport fan could be a sim racer. And hopefully if we can convert some of those people that have always discounted it and thought, well, actually, you know what, this is not this kind of like arcadey, unappealing thing, it's actually really, really good, and it's a good thing to spend some time with, then that's going to grow our industry. It's going to have more eyes, more engagement in the community, more diverse and different opinions, more people buying the sims, because let's be honest, even the most successful racing sim out there pales in comparison to the use of something like Fortnite or another big first-person shooter game or whatever. So you don't make racing sims to make millions and millions of pounds. You make it because you like motor racing and you want to. So if we can get some more sales to those developers and help them earn a crust and then build bigger and better and newer things, that's great. And more importantly, more importantly is totally wrong, but equally as importantly, and I see this from my talks from our eSport series side, manufacturers are now much more interested and engaged in eSport racing and sim racing in general.
And do you think that will continue to be the case, Paul? Do you think this is a bubble?
No, I think the curtain's been opened and they've seen what can be done.
Okay.
I mean, think of it like this. You are Paul Glover Limited and you sponsor a Porsche 911 at Le Mans and it costs you whatever. I don't know. I'm going to make a number up. I've got no idea what it costs. 200 grand for a one-off race. When Le Mans over, there might be a highlights program next year. A few people might buy the DVD, but your brand vanishes. But you have your brand on a licensed car that goes into the official GT World Challenge game. That stays there forever. And that's seen by thousands of people. It's raced by thousands of people. You're getting so much more engagement for such a longer period of time over a whole new demographic of folk, which tend to be usually a little bit on the younger side, so maybe in a position to buy whatever it is you're hocking. So I think manufacturers are starting to see the value of having themselves involved, and I hope this will lead in the medium to long-term future a lot more willingness to allow licenses out to different studios for a lot more reasonable price.
Yeah,
because they see the value
it would be nice to kind of like have the standard Coastmaster F1, but also being able to license cars and tracks to R Factor 2 or whoever. Yes. Just so you kind of you're feeding both markets then, aren't you?
Yeah, I think there's been I've talked to many devs over many years about this subject, so I'm not going to quote any of them, obviously. But I always think from the broad impression I get is from a manufacturer's point of view, they've never fully understood what sim racing is. And they've always been a little bit thinking like, ooh, looking on the negative side, like if I allow my brand into this, will you have people going backwards because they're doing 300 mile an hour racing a helicopter? And that's not what exclusive brand A is all about. And I think if they realise actually this is a lot more serious and organised and professional and respectable than they maybe first understood it, there'll be a lot less reluctance to open that door to the conversation, and hopefully they can see the value of it, the long-term value of it, so they're not going to be slapping arbitrary, humongous figures. I mean, we've seen it. Ferrari have just come to our Factor 2. That's a license that Tim Wheatley's been chasing when he used to work for Studio 397/ASI for a decade. So the doors are already starting to open.
It's great. Which is great to see.
Yeah, it's great for everybody, which is absolutely great for everybody.
Okay, and finally, over to Davide.
Hey.
Thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Welcome back.
Weird interactions during the podcast.
Yeah, that's what you get with me.
Yeah, true. But that's why we're
still here, so it must be good.
Let's not say we love you. We care about you.
Okay. All right.
Joking. We all love Paul
I was
Glover.
expecting better, but anyway, go on.
Yeah.
Give us your answer.
From the current Esport series, what is missing? What I think is missing? Well, I would say that probably nothing is missing.
Okay.
And instead, everyone has been doing too much. I think that some of the content should be cut down. Series should be shorter. Like for example, like we are doing 4 or 5 races, 6, no longer than that, to don't stretch things too much.
Yeah.
And I would like to see more involvement between official drivers and sim racers, or amateur drivers, as we want to call them. And not just, of course, not any sim racer, but people that are qualified to race against official drivers, professional drivers. But at the same time, not just the usual names, because we all know that we have now esport sim racers that are kind of the PewDiePie of our world, and they get called in every series, and it's fine. Of course, they are great talents, and we love to see them. But what I mean is that I would like to see professional drivers get involved in racing with the casual sim racer. Of course, as I said, someone that is qualified for the job, but like for example, if I participate in a qualifying session and I prove that I can race against Charles Leclerc, why the FIA should not be calling me, in a series? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So more something more of a back-to-back racing between pro and AMS. And the other question was, remember
Do you think the pandemic will have a
outcome?
positive outcome for sim racing?
Yeah, surely. As Paul was saying, we can already see it, that people are getting to know sim racing. I noticed it, for example, by looking at some Twitch and YouTube channels, that their subscribers and their views have exponentially increased. They have basically gone through the roof thanks to this current situation, and that is indeed a good thing for us. I don't think that professional drivers are gonna stick with sim racing, or at least not all of them, of course, just a few maybe. But that is irrelevant, because what is important, I think, is that the motorsport world now recognizes, knows what the potential of our hobby is, and our potential, the potential of sim racers is, and that should open the doors for a lot of cool opportunities. And for some people that would have liked to become racing drivers but couldn't, maybe because of economic issues or
see
things
that a lot.
like that can get their
we see that a lot with
opportunity.
professional esports drivers, don't we, who haven't necessarily got the money behind them to to make it all the way.
Yeah, it's in a sort of way already been happening, but with the situation, with the recognition that we now have, it should be happening a lot more. And along with the Formula Junior Series, I think that sim racing can become, and I hope it will become, another a door to get into motorsport.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Well, that's all of my questions for you guys. Yeah.
Come on, you have one more. We're having such fun.
Yeah, you have to say your own. You have to say your own opinion about what's missing to you, for you, Paul.
He didn't prepare.
No, I didn't. No, because, listen, I
Sorry, mate. I didn't mean to put
no, it's
you on
fine.
the fire.
No, I mean, it'll be interesting.
Listen to him struggle though. He's not on script. Go on, Glover. Go on, son.
Do you know, I sometimes really hate these guys. I'm going to touch on the topic. Do I think the pandemic will have a positive outcome for sim racing? Yeah, I think it will. And I think I genuinely think you'll be surprised. I think the likes of Albon and so forth have had their eyes opened by Mr. Norris, about Twitch, etc. And you'll possibly see them a little bit more, during like the winter breaks and things like that. And I know that like Gutierrez and there's other ex Formula 1 drivers that now racing other series will probably be on board as well. They might not necessarily be as prolific, but I think you'll still see them from time to time. And as Paul has kind of rightly pointed out, the eyes of some of the manufacturers, and that, do you know what, that's generally, I mean, we talk about the Le Mans 24 that's upcoming. I mean, you've got Verstappen and Lando Norris in the same team. You've got some of the drivers from the W Series taking part. You've got Esport drivers taking part, and they're all in the same teams, which is really great to see. Like, they're pairing them up, which is really something which is kind of bringing, it's kind of going back to what I think Davide was saying, or was it Danny? Sorry, about mixing the two together a bit more, which I think is the Le Mans, and it's an official event, which is great to see. And the manufacturers are all involved as well, which is kind of like, it's something a bit different, something we haven't necessarily seen before. And when you go back to the start of F1 esports, I mean, the likes of was it Mercedes and Ferrari weren't on board when it first kicked off, and now that I know that Ferrari are now involved finally, and Mercedes were a couple of years ago as well. So you see that from that standpoint, and Williams have got their own Williams esports team, which have been around now for a little while. I do think it's going to have some positives. It will be interesting to see what happens, because our TV screens will start to be filled again with real motorsport, be it that British touring cars, unfortunately it won't be DTM, or Formula E and Formula 1 and W Series and Rally and everything else, any other motorsport that I forgot about. MotoGP, I've been really missing MotoGP. It'll be great to kind of, I guess that's what's missing, isn't it? A MotoGP esports. Be quite hard to replicate that, though.
No, they've got one.
Good point.
Have they?
Really?
They've got one. Lorenzo won first time out last time.
That's got to be on a controller, right?
Oh, God, yeah, it's on MotoGP 20. So quite a few of I think Ross is in it, and the Marquez brothers are doing quite well, etc., etc. Yeah,
Rossi took part in some racing events, and also was at one point streaming with Mr. Leclerc as well. So he was racing ACC one evening, and that's another thing is like, Charles Leclerc has bought users to ACC.
For sure.
He's
for
in,
sure.
and you see it. You see it with if you look at the Steam charts and the numbers of increase. It still can't compete with F1 2019. It never will do. And you're only ever seeing the numbers from PC users. It obviously doesn't include Xbox and PlayStation. But ACC is now also available on consoles as well. But you're seeing this spike, and when he races on a lawnmower, for instance, which is an AC mod, which is available to download at RaceDepartment.com. And so where he got that from. He got that from our website. I mean, where else could he have got that from? Which is something also to think about. Is like these guys that are running these mods are coming to Race Department to come and get them, which is just something to think about. So it's it'll be interesting. It really will be an interesting time to see. It's definitely, we're in a bubble because of the pandemic. I think maybe more manufacturers will chuck more money at it. But also, let's not forget the little men, the guys that are in their bedrooms and can't get to these on-site events. As great as the SRO stuff on site last year was, unfortunately, because of the nature of the qualifying and the competition, it meant that the prices that people were having to pay for flights was extortionate, and that unfortunately put a lot of people out of it. And hopefully, when they start that up again, because Silverstone and Brands Hatch are now in the game, hopefully they'll be able to do some UK events, which was kind of missed last time round. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go on site or whether they go remote, like we're doing with
a mix of both.
Or a mix of both. Yeah, like do maybe 5 stages where everyone's, and then you do a final somewhere.
It's just been awesome this year. I've not been sat in foreign countries that have got nothing to do with where I should be.
Yeah, and you've not been,
because my aeroplane's disappeared.
Yeah, and you've not, we were talking about it not long ago, weren't we? As great as it is for you to go to places, your flight's not, you're not stranded somewhere. You're not having to take extra days holiday off work.
Honestly, I've got the worst track record of, for some mysterious reason, not being able to leave the country I wish to leave to get to my own.
And just think of the dodgy food you've had to consume, and also, you don't have to complain about there not being any seating. So.
That's true. I've got seats anywhere I so desire.
Yeah,
it's glorious.
Danny, what you got?
Well, on this curveball, I'd like to throw a little, food for thought. So imagine this. You, Paul, Jeffrey, complaining about all these misfortunes of traveling back and forth for the SRO. So imagine this, especially the pro drivers that do a lot of driving in various series around the world. They spend a good part of their life on airplanes, right?
Yeah.
Flying from here to there, barely at home. And now many of them are with their families, their kids, doing the races, serious ones with their fellow drivers. And every day they can go home afterwards. Well, they are home already, and they go and have dinner with their...
Yeah, it must be a living nightmare for them.
Well, maybe, I guess it depends. Every case is a case.
You raise a good point there, Danny. That, before, if you're racing in America and then you've got to go fly back to Europe, so where now at the computer they could be in Europe and then they could be in America at a flick of a switch.
Yeah, I wonder
that's what sim racing brings.
Yeah, how big of... for example, I've done a few rallies back in the day, and one thing I didn't really like at all was I need to prepare, I need to drive all the way there, and there's so much hassle for so little driving.
Yeah.
And what I like is the racing, really, and sim racing is amazing for that in that aspect. You just have it at home anytime you want. So I wonder how many real drivers are going to say, I might spend some more time in this. Maybe I'll just do one championship instead of 2, and the second one I'll do it at home on a sim racing game.
Yeah,
who knows?
It's possible, and I know we know that Verstappen and Lando Norris have often done iRacing even during a Formula One season. So why others can't do the same? I think they can. Yes, Davide.
Something that Danny made me think about with what was he saying is many times we have complained both here on the podcast or privately about the fact that for example F1 drivers do not drive anymore in other series like they did in the past. They were in a GT car or in IndyCar or whatever you want. And with sim racing, we could bridge this gap because an F1 driver could take part in an official IndyCar series. And I don't think there will be the same, sponsors problems that there are if you would take part in the actual series. So I think that sim racing could also be the opportunity for us and for drivers to try different series and different cars without having all of the hassles brought by sponsors and exclusivities. I think. I hope that could be the case.
Yeah, could well be actually. You could be right. So okay, well let's bring this to a close. We were originally trying to do an hour, but we've surpassed that. Not too badly, but I think there was a lot to go through, and some very good answers and good points of discussion. And let us know your thoughts, listeners. At RaceDepartment.com, or you can tweet us at Race Department, or you can find us on Facebook as well. We're also on Instagram. Just search for Race Department. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think is the future of sim racing? Combined with esports. Where do you think it's going to go? What have you liked so far? Hopefully, you've liked our own SRO AM coverage. I've genuinely been really proud of that. So
it's awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah. So some mentions. So SRO AM series. We were working on that. We've had, how many rounds have we had? Four rounds.
We've had 3. It's number 4 this weekend at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia.
Yeah. So great for that. And we got Vicky Butler Henderson on and Martin Haven, which is just great. Great additions to the team. And we've had some really good feedback on it. So make sure you check it out on our Twitch channel. What time do we go live? At 7 o'clock?
It's also on
summertime.
Yep, the archive's on YouTube,
yeah.
And we go live at 7 BST, which is 1800 UTC, 1900 CEST.
No, 2000 CEST.
Oh, 2000 C. I can't. I've had a beer. I can't count.
It's actually it's amazing how we still, after all this time, still struggle with the summertime.
I hate time zones. Time zones make me angry. Can we just not have one time for the whole wide world?
Yeah.
A universal time, some might say.
A few other mentions. AMS builds keep on coming. I haven't played the game for a while myself, but the feedback, that people are coming, it's moving in the right direction. They've recently blogged about some delays because of the pandemic. So that's because they can't get hold of certain data or go to tracks and things like that, which is understandable. ACC hot fixes keep coming at you. That'd be good if they. That's because they keep putting bugs in the game, please. So there was one that was a bit weird. It's like if you're still in the pit box at the start of the race, the cars would basically fly about when you got on the grid and cause a lot of damage. We've also
we've really not noticed that one, Paul, at all during the broadcast.
No, we didn't, did we? That was fun. Well, they fixed that, but they've also now another one with the grid spots not being right. Also, R Factor 2, we've had some new cars and tracks that Paul mentioned earlier in the pod. I haven't bought those myself. Recently, we've had the Coastmasters and WRC license announcement coming forth as well. So, how you feel about Coastmasters will depend how you feel about that announcement. So we'll leave it at that. And also, let's recognise that today is the 50th anniversary of the death of one Bruce McLaren. And if you are a Bruce McLaren fan, there is a good documentary about him, which I found absolutely fascinating. So he was before my time, of course. But 50 years today as we record, which is Tuesday, the 2nd of June 2020. If you listen to this into the future, hello future. Yeah, there you go.
Hi.
Has COVID gone yet?
Yeah, we hope so.
I want to go outside and touch people. I want to lick things.
So that's it really. Also a positive for us at Race Department is because everyone's at home. I know the weather's getting a little bit warmer now, so you tend to see a decline in the amount of people sim racing because people actually want to step outside their front door and enjoy the sunshine. We have seen a nice increase in those taking part in our racing club events, so make sure you check out Race Department and check out our calendar. I've been doing some ACC events and with grids of like 40 to 50 people, and they've been fantastic. As Paul has mentioned already, YouTube videos of the recent races, so feel free to watch those. Search for Race Department there. We've got our Twitch. we also simracing.gp, which is our kind of sister site, would you say? And it's a place where you can go and create events, and it spins up a server for that event and then shuts it down. The ACC testing is underway at the moment, so Assetto Corsa has been available in beta for a little while, but Assetto Corsa Competizione is now available in beta.
Beta, for God's sake, man. Beta. There's no Y in it.
Okay, beta. I'm very American. Sorry, I was very American there. So we are currently, Bram is the founder of Race Department, is currently testing a league on there. So trying to work out any bugs that come across, and hopefully at some point soon it will come out of beta. Damn it. Beta. Don't forget, we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Bookface. So search for Race Department. Yeah. Paul, got any closing remarks?
Yes, I just want to very quickly do a couple of name drops. Check out the Auto Express podcast this week, because I'm going to be on with Vicky Butler-Henderson and the team talking about sim racing.
Stop banging on about it.
Yay. So go and wander over there and listen to the musings we've done on that one. And also, it's a non-RD related thing, but I still want to say hello. The Lamborghini Real Race is this weekend as well, where I'll be joining with Ben Constanduras to talk about some expensive cars I can never afford in a racing setting. So yeah, say hello to that one as well. Come join us for the Esport fun.
Okay, great. David A., any closing remarks from yourself?
If you want, you can watch me on Instagram. I will be teaching how you cook carbonara, spaghetti alla carbonara.
Nice.
While Paul is in his Lamborghini gig, I am.
So how do people find you on Instagram, David A., for this wonderful tutorial?
Actually, I have to see, because I have to register on Instagram first.
It's going to register on Instagram, then learn how to cook carbonara, and then buy your webcam, and then it's all there.
Yeah, it's all a plan in my mind. I'm figuring out.
So, if you want people to follow you, you have to have an account already, and then you give them your Instagram username. This is how it works. So for instance, I'm on Twitter. I'm Glovepup, GLOVEPUP. Paul, you're not on Twitter, are you, personally? Are you, or anything?
I'm not, no, but I've just this last few days started on Facebook, where I shall be posting things that are not allowed to be posted on Race Department. So go find me on Facebook and say hello.
Well, you just search for Paul Jeffrey, do you?
You do indeed, and there's an alarming number of Paul Jeffreys on Facebook, which is quite shocking. So look for the one with my handsome chops on the front.
You can't, just looking for the Lego hair, guys. Remember the Lego hair?
God, took you an hour and 30-something minutes to get in there.
It's Lego hair.
It's called tradition. It has to say
You're jealous of my luscious locks, my Corona cut.
Yeah, the thing is, like, when most people look at Paul, they must think, he's let his hair go because of Corona. Like, no, I'm like, no, that's just his hair.
You look at Paul and think, what a strikingly handsome chap with spectacular head of hair.
No one thinks that. Just your mum.
My mum does.
Right, okay. Danny, any final words from you?
Keep calm and sim race.
Boom.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, dear listener. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Sorry that we've not been around. We've been a little bit busy. I don't know when the next one's going to be. Guys, when's the next one going to be? Are we having a break, or we?
Whenever you're ready, Brian. It's up to you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Next week.
A fortnight.
We'll be back. Don't worry. We won't leave you. We won't leave you hanging. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to David A. Thank you to Danny. It's been a pleasure talking to you all again and getting your opinions on sim racing and pros. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do give us a like, subscribe, leave us a review. Please, 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 please spread the word. Tell people about this pod. It really is the best. Thank you very much. I've been Paul Glover. This has been the Race Department Podcast. Cheerio.